you all met her before, but she's a born and bred Zimbabwean, from up there north of us. She's a true Zimbabwean. She loves Zimbabwe, and I'd like you to give a nice big warm welcome to Katy Boaler.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. There is no doubt that stories influence the way that we view life. They offer us a way to engage, connect, explore, and understand the world in which we live, as well as also make sense of our own lives. Some academics go as far as to say that stories have been necessary for the survival of humankind. The novelist Louis de Bernier once said that history ought to be made up of the stories of the ordinary people only. And I completely agree with this in the case of my homeland, Zimbabwe. It is only from the low street level vantage point of the ordinary person that the world is able to point a torch at the cost of the choices that the leaders of our nation are making or have already made. From the lofty heights of men of power, the torchlight vanishes into the dark night before it even touches the ground. For that reason, yes, one can understand why political history ought to be read alongside social history. Because on its own, this rhetoric becomes a vulgar abstraction of the truth, if not a clanging lie. The histories, or the stories that we tell ourselves, like the songs that we sing, make us who we are. On a personal level, our stories are the tools by which we recall past events, and ultimately how we hold our sense of self together when times are such that we could easily lose ourselves or our way. We all have a story of that, I am sure. But what happens when the pages of that story are ripped out of your hands before you can tell them, or the words from your mouth before they can be uttered? The modern mind has great difficulty comprehending how, in this age of democracy, a people are unable to stand up and speak out against their oppressors. People who think in this manner have never lived in Zimbabwe. In the year 2000, when I was only 6 years old, farm invasions rocked my home. A country that was famous for raising healthy crops and being able to sustain its own people was reduced to the burning cinders of political turmoil. Among both the black and white population, a culture of fear began to grow. The army and the police force, heavily supported by the ruling ZANU-PF party, began to perpetuate a multitude of terrifying human rights abuses. There was absolutely no recourse to the law, and hugely repressive media restrictions were introduced to control the narrative, to control the story. Daily, the ruling elite became more corrupt, and crimes of assault, abduction, torture, and murder occurred. This was the real story of Zimbabwe. It wasn't a fairy tale, or rather a nightmare. This was reality. The stories were countless because this reality was not selective. It affected absolutely everyone. It was something that we all understood. Real stories, relatable stories. The story of my best friend's father, who was beaten so badly when being evicted from his farm that he had to spend months in hospital. The story of a man who told me about just before the elections in 2008, when the ZANU-PF militia arrived at his village with a ballot box, and they said to him, "This is the ballot box for this area. If we find one MDC vote in this box, we will come back and we will punish you." My story even, of the time when my mother told me to run and hide in the garden, when men wielding pangas and batons tried to break down the gate. Freedom of speech died, and in its place trod this culture of fear. And so, the voices of justice, the voices of healthy opposition, and the voices of hope were forced into silence. If I have learned one thing from my year at Red and Yellow, it has been the importance of digital media and how social media can have an immense influence over the way that stories are told. These platforms create a way to transcend the boundaries of traditional storytelling and offer new and exciting ways for people to join in the conversation and add to the narrative. A couple of years ago in Zimbabwe, a very interesting Facebook figure popped up. His name was Baba Jukwa, and he began to criticize the government online. He built up a massive following for himself in a very short period of time, and this left the government completely rattled. Having held power for over 30 years, Mugabe and his ZANU-PF party have had to deal with surges of dissent before, but they've always been able to crush it and control it. But the fluidity and anonymity of Baba Jukwa's presence created a new force of opposition. The enemy was the internet, and it had no face. It could not be brutalized, it could not be beaten, and it could not be made to disappear. At the end of 2015, Itai Dzamara, a Zimbabwean journalist and political activist, went missing after he started the Occupy Africa Unity Square campaign against the government. Another knock to freedom of speech. But this time, people spread the word and citizens launched the hashtag #FindItai movement on Facebook. To this day, Itai has not been found. But his story has been used as a symbol of how Mugabe and his cronies prefer the silence of our people. At the time of his disappearance, conversation pulsed on social media. And to this day, people still ask the question under the hashtag, "Where is Itai?" But this year, the most phenomenal thing happened in Zimbabwe. It is something that has made me more proud than ever to call myself a Zimbabwean. It all started with this video. A video shared on social media that sparked the most incredible stand of bravery and solidarity that I have seen in Zimbabwe in my whole lifetime. In April, a mild-mannered middle-class man named Ivan Mawarire sat in his office and agonized over how he would pay the school fees for his 2 children. In a country experiencing the cash crisis of a crumbling economy, this has become an impossible task. He draped himself in the Zimbabwe flag, and he created the first of a series of videos that would act as the catalyst for the hashtag #ThisFlag movement. The video went up and, of course, went completely viral. And it started a campaign whereby Zimbabweans were encouraged to be proud of their flag again, to be proud of their country. Own a flag, he said. Find one and be proud of it. Love it once again, because no one can do it more than us, the people of our country. The political system has certainly failed us, and the government has treated us as votes without voices. Over the period of about a month, the movement gained traction and attracted the attention of hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans at home as well as in the diaspora, who all came together under the colors of our Zimbabwean flag, united by a simple hashtag. Here, we shared our feelings, our experiences, and our stories. We sang the song for a better Zimbabwe. At this time, everyone wanted to own the flag, and of course, the government backlash was immediate. The government banned the sale of flags countrywide, and it became illegal for us to display the colors of our nation. Being active on social media under the hashtag #ThisFlag movement, a completely peaceful and non-violent movement, earned them the reputation of being cyber terrorists. Enough is enough. It is time for change, and the real-time coverage of events as well as the ongoing conversation on social media means that the government has stopped being able to completely control our narrative. Even having drafted the computer crime and cybercrime bill of this year, as well as shutting down our WhatsApp during a period of very peaceful protests in the country, the conversation is still on fire. Social media, for so many people, is a place that is solely for sharing photos of food. Photos of the places that we go, the people we see, what we like. But for Zimbabweans, the internet and social media is a place of real and meaningful value exchange. In the past, every opportunity that we've had to speak out has been crushed. But finally, we've found a channel. We found a channel that works, and we found a channel that can impact our narrative. It can even impact the government. Perhaps even change the way that our story is written in the textbooks that our children will read one day. A place for us to show our courage and sow the seeds of change. Because courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than that fear. Thank you.